Welcome to Fitch Painting Repairs Garage. Today's project, Dyna Clutch. This is my 96 Wide Glide. And a little backstory, pulling up to red light, just kind of felt a little clunkiness in there. I thought maybe the compensator nut had come loose. It was sufficiently torqued, was not loose. Stator's not loose, nothing in there is loose. Primary chain tension was a little bit off. It was a little bit of too much slack. But what we did find in pulling the clutch apart, the clutch hub nut. Alright, this is the clutch hub nut. Alright, now what we had found, this is going to be a little bit hard for me to do, was this washer was trapped on the end of the nut because this nut had been mushroomed out from being over torqued. This is a reverse thread nut for the clutch hub. To tighten it, you would turn it counterclockwise to tighten it. So somebody was probably trying to remove it and couldn't get it off, and they over torqued it. And so this end got mushroomed out, and what had happened is this little washer was stuck right there on the end like that. And so it's supposed to slide through and travel, right? So I think what happened is when they torqued it down, it wasn't quite all the way torqued against, and had just tiny little bit of travel. And when we pulled it apart, what we found, and the big mystery originally, was this particular washer. It's not really a washer, it's a spiral snap ring, and it opens up and it spirals around. And what that does actually is, this is the washer stack that you have. And this is your clutch hub. And down in here, this washer goes in first, like that. Fits down inside that little recess down in there. And then this one goes in, okay? And if you look real closely, it says out on it. That's where it's supposed to face out. That goes in there. And then this little lock washer, there's a groove right there. This little thing goes down in there and catches that and holds that washer in place, so that when you drive your hub nut down in there, it seats against that first washer that was in there. And what we had was that curved washer with the word out on it was capturing the nut, and it wasn't going all the way in. And what had happened, and the reason why I had found this free floating in there when I broke the nut loose, was as I backed this out, like I said, it had captured this washer on the end, right? And so it pulled this right out of that groove. And what had ended up happening was, this was like this, right? Oops, the other way. So this was like this in the stack, right? And so that's kind of how I found it. Not so dramatic, but that's how I found it. And so basically what was happening was, when you tried to pull the nut out, that stack being like that with that washer trapped on it wouldn't allow the nut to come out, because this is actually too big to fit out the hole for the where the holdback plate for the clutch adjustment is. When this thing right here on the pressure plate, when you take that out, there's a snap ring that holds that in place. When you take that out, you can pull this hub nut out through there to pull the entire assembly off as one. You don't have to pull the circ clip off on the spring pressure plate, but this wouldn't come out. And so we had to take the whole clutch pack apart to get that out. And then in doing so, what we did was, yeah, I should have bought a brand new one of these, but for right now, to put it all back together to verify what we have, is I milled this down and took the mushrooming out. And milled it down was hand-worked file. I hand-worked it with a file, very carefully, very fine cutting file, to take the high ridge off where it was stuck. like that, right? It was stuck on there. See how that gets stuck when it's cocked a little bit? And that's what starts it. So when you see it slides right over, nice and easy. So we took a file, knocked the high edges off right there, and then we took sandpaper and went around it with sandpaper to smooth it off, and also a wire wheel on a drill to clean that up really nice. And so we're going to see if that solves the problem and it all goes back together fine, and if not, then we'll buy some new parts and we'll put her back together. But I do believe that might be the solution to the problem here. So got to get this all reassembled today, put it all back together. And here's something for you guys. Again, left-hand thread. That means it turns counterclockwise. So instead of righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, it's backwards. It's lefty-loosey, righty. Righty-loosey, lefty-tighty on that one. This one's standard. Tightens to the right. But it does under a lot of torque. And there's red Loctite that you put on these to keep them from coming loose. So what we had to do was get the big old breaker bar with the cheater persuader on the end of it, and we built a little tool. Where's my little tool? My little tool here. This is soft. Oops, sorry about that. This is a soft metal, aluminum. All right, and folded it over several times. And what you do is where you got the gear, you got your gear here in your primary chain, you slide that in and keep that from moving. Keeps the engine from rotating, right? And see here where the gear digs into it and that holds it in place. So a little handmade tool, something soft. It's softer than the metal on the gear, so it ain't gonna damage it. It'll just end up poking a hole through it. Make it so you got a little handle, you can grab it. You're gonna have to back it back out a little bit to get it out. And then here's another little tool that we fabricated. This right here is your pressure plate clutch spring compression tool that I built. Take a 4-inch PVC pipe connector, cut it to the length that you need, get a bolt that matches the thread of your hold back for your clutch adjustment. That little piece right there threads into that center, and then basically what this does is that pushes down on the spring, and the cutaway you can get in there to get to the circlip and pull that apart. So what you got is these two top nuts lock the rod into place so you can back it out. The bottom nut you thread down and it presses down on that big heavy duty plate and pushes this down and compresses that spring so you can get that out. Little homemade tool. So just a plate, heavy duty plate, so it ain't gonna bend or anything like that. And then just a 4-inch coupler, and we cut it down and cut these notches out of it so that you can get to the groove. So there's no need to go and buy these expensive Harley-Davidson tools for these old bikes to work on them, or go on eBay. You know, if you got the money to spend on the right stuff, hey man, fit your shop out with it. But if you're poor like me and you're working on a budget, build your own tools. All right, man. Till later.